A very good morning to one and all. On behalf of the Department of Corporate Secretaryship Day and Evening of DG Vaishnav College, I deem it a great honor to welcome our distinguished speaker of the day, Shri Prabhuchari. I extend a warm welcome to faculties, students, academicians, research scholars, and all the participants to our National Level Ability Enhancement Series VII on the topic Recruitment and Selection Practices in IT, a Corporate Perspective. I now request Dr. K. Kalpana Devi, Assistant Professor and Head in Charge Evening, to deliver the welcome address.
A very good morning to one and all. On behalf of Department of Corporate Secretaryship, Day and Evening, myself Dr. K. Kalpana Devi, Head in Charge, Department of Corporate Secretaryship Evening, deem it a great honor to welcome our Principal, Captain Dr. S. Santosh Babu, the distinguished speaker of the day, Sri Prabhuchari. I extend a warm welcome to the faculties, students, academicians, research scholar, and all the participants to our national level webinar on Ability Enhancement Series, Lecture Series 7 on the topic Recruitment and Selection Practices in IT, a Corporate Perspective. Recruitment and selection plays a crucial role in any organization, particularly in service sectors such as IT industries. Human resources are the core asset for any company in service sector. Selecting the right employees results in the survival and growth of the organization. Every organization needs an efficient recruitment and selection process that helps in sourcing, screening, shortlisting, and selecting the right candidate for the required job position. Developing such a process will not only help an individual organization but the industry and economy as a whole to progress continuously. An efficient recruitment and selection process empowers a company to achieve this primary objective. This webinar will help our students and faculty to gain a valuable insight about the recruitment and selection process. Thank you.
I now request Mr. D. Prem Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Corporate Secretaryship Day, to introduce the speaker.
Yeah, good morning to all. It is a very big honor to read the profile of Mr. Chari, right? But he has three differential things given to us, right? One is regarding academics, then the professional certification, then the professional work experience, right? Mr. Prabhu is a Bachelor of Science in Statistics from Loyola College, Chennai. He has completed his postgraduate honors diploma in personal management and industrial relations from Madras School of Social Work, and a diploma in materials management from Annamalai University, a diploma in Oracle RDBMS, Relational Database Management System SSI. He has completed his Master of Business Administration in Human Resource from IGNOU, New Delhi, and a postgraduate certificate in Human Resources in XLRI, Jamshedpur. His professional certifications are Certified Bulletproof Manager from Srestcom International, Certified in Managerial Excellence in Highly Effective People from Stephen Covey School, then Certified Human Resource Professional and Hewitt Cognizant, then Certified Leadership from Maynard and Lick. He is an accomplished, result-driven human resource professional with an overall experience of 31 years and 15 plus years of experience in IT industries. Expertise in creating and implementing programs to improve business operations, adapt in building, recruiting and selection and retention strategies, highly skilled in preparing for restructuring, design, implement, organization change, management initiatives and alignment with business strategies, morale and retention. Strong in relationship building and effective collaboration with management, co-workers, vendor partners, and clients. Proven ability to work with cross-functional teams in complex projects and deliver superior results in the matrix organizational structure. execute coaching, counseling programs for executives, managers, leaders, and he has served for 9 years in Ministry of Defense, Government of India, Chennai, and 4 years in Wipro Hardware Manufacturing Facility, Pondicherry, and 2 years in Globsin Technologies, that is Software Services, Calcutta. He was associated with Cognizant in its Coimbatore facility as a seed member and head of human resources for the last 15 years. In his recent past assignment, recently he has been engaging in Amrita Business School as adjunct faculty for the past 6 years. Now, I think this is what the brief introduction, what has been to be introduced. Thank you.
Okay, Priya, can I begin now?
Yes, sir. Over to you,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the warm welcome and the introduction. My respects to all the academic team, the faculty members, the distinguished academicians, the research scholars, and dear students. So what I will be doing is over the next 45 minutes to share with you on the topic of a corporate perspective on the recruitment and selection. Some of the groundwork which I believe is already done as part of your core curriculum. So what we will be looking at is few finer aspects relating to the recruitment and selection, having studied the distinction between recruitment and selection, number one. And number two, looking at what are the key areas which companies normally look forward to while doing this recruitment and selection. And then selection process. And then followed by that will be the a good overview about the industry perspective. In that industry perspective, we want to leave you with how the business has a great impact on the recruitment strategies and consequently towards the selection aspects, the cycles of business which impact the entire recruitment and selection practices end to end. We'll end with a small movie at the end of the program to just give you some perspective on how impactful short 2 minute or 3 minute interaction between the participant or the candidate and the interview panel can make a huge difference. So with that, I'll just begin the session. Is it visible, Priya?
Yes, sir. Yes. The screen is visible.
Okay. He has propounded that resources that are very rare, valuable, inimitable, and non-substitutable give a long-term advantage. In corporates, generally, narrowing down on the most appropriate resource is next to impossible, and it would not be fair to say that we will be able to get the right resource at all points in time. So there'll always be some kind of a bridge that needs to be done between the resource that we are looking forward to versus the opportunity that we have for a resource who is coming on board with various, academic and professional skills. So there will always be that kind of a bridge work, which either has to be fulfilled through a training program, an intervention from a corporate perspective towards aligning the resource towards what they require for in terms of skill, knowledge, and abilities. A second one is to make sure that we invest minimal time towards equipping the resource to get industry ready or business ready. In that context, all the business units and managements look forward to looking at narrowing down the closest possible match to a particular role. And that's why we say that human capital, if it is having all these critical characteristics, namely that which is valuable, that which is inimitable and non-substitutable, because each person is unique and each resource contributes in more ways than one than what a company can see during his or her career stage in their in the corporate. And one of the good things about human assets, unlike all the other material assets, is that it appreciates over a period of time. Many of us do not realize that unlike all the assets which you buy from the market, whether it's a material asset or any other asset which you buy, has a lifetime value, and you need to keep depreciating its value over a period of time, unlike human asset which keeps appreciating. But there is a catch to it. You need to make sure that you are sharpening that particular asset. It's like a diamond. You need to keep pounding it with more and more. Diamond needs to be shaped, it needs to be cut, it needs to be continuously given that vigor to make it more and more shiny. So likewise, human assets are also falling under the same class, where it keeps appreciating over a period of time. What we study in a school or a college is having a end date. It can be for a period of 20 years, 21 years, depending on whether you are pursuing a UG or a PG. But the learning happens from the time we step out of our campus. Therefore, that appreciation is called the real learning value, which we will be looking forward to in a corporate environment. That means what we study in a school or a college is raw, potent, and very, very valuable, but fundamental knowledge. So we need to spend some time towards giving this perspective to every one of you, and that narrows down to this individual's knowledge, skill, and attitude. The former two, namely the knowledge and skill portion, are something that can be acquired. Knowledge and skill, both of these can be acquired. And skill needs to be applied, whereas knowledge can be acquired. But whereas the third component, most important component, namely the attitude, which needs to be developed individually. And it has got a 360-degree influence right from your school, college, the community to which you belong to, the way your home, the environment is encouraging you to develop those positive attitude, to be cultivated, the positive outlook that you have towards yourself and towards the society. Attitude is something which is innate, it is inane, and the individual needs to develop the same. Whereas knowledge is acquired, skill is applied. And all of these put together will create that very, very differentiated, line of contribution for an individual in a corporate. So that is what they look forward to while they are looking at aligning the person's individual three KSAs, knowledge, skill, and attitude, towards a corporate culture and creating a competitive spirit for the individual. So if we are able to narrow down to the right set of human resources, an organization can ensure that it is having a long-term outlook. It is able to sustain over a longer period of time. And many corporates can be given examples for how they were able to show that kind of a long-term sustenance, simply because they were able to get the right kind of resources, nurture them very well, and make sure that both the individual and the company is successful over a longer period of time. And research also suggests that good fit between strategic skills of executives and strategy ensures high rate of return. So it doesn't happen over time. Like I mentioned, from the date we hire a fresher in from the campus, straight out of the campus into the corporate, it is a long drawn process. But if you are able to manage to sustain the individual between 0 to 3 years or 3 to 5 years maximum, then we are kind of sure that the individual is able to reap dividends, not just for himself, but also able to contribute very well to the organization. So therefore, the context of 0 to 3 years and 5 years is coming slowly when we discuss in the why there is a lot of emphasis given for the joining process also. That's the connection there. And just switching gears here, what are the, once you have understood the importance of recruitment and selection and the interview process as part of this subset of the selection typically narrows down on these 5 big traits, and these 5 big personality traits are more or less measured in more ways than one. And more often there are structured interview stages in many of these corporates, and they look forward to candidates carrying one or more of these skills. So starting from neuroticism is the ability of the individual to stay calm, composed in the wake of uncertainties, in the wake of challenges, in the wake of high pressure environment. How well we are able to manage those kind of uncertainties, ambiguities, how well we are able to uh, sharpen our skills and make sure that we are able to give the best during those tough situations. You can actually relate to the current external environment that all of us are going through that. And it is important for us to stay cool, calm, composed, and more importantly, look forward to positive outlook and solutions to the challenges that we are facing. Too often, this is one of the key things that corporates will be looking forward, apart from the academic knowledge that we are able to bring to the table, and also the skills that we are able to convert from an application perspective, whatever we have gained from a theoretical perspective. The second one is the openness to experience. Typically, openness to experience talks about how imaginative, innovative, and if we are not run-of-the-mill stuff, what kind of differentiation we are able to bring to the particular role that we have been identified for. That openness for experience is again something we need to cultivate, uh, both as an individual as well as from the academic environment, starting from school and college, and ability to think out of the box, apply innovative solutions. There's nothing wrong in failing, because failing gives us the opportunity to learn from our failures, to apply different thought process to get the right results. So therefore, that openness to experience again talks about the measure to which an extent an individual is imaginative, creative, as opposed to down to earth and conservative. Here, we are not for a second propagating that we should not be mindful of being conservative or down to earth. It's very important. But at the same time, how well we are able to think different solutions for tackling different issues. The next one is conscientiousness. Again, is a measure of how careful or deliberate and self-disciplined we are in making sure that we are organized as an individual. What has it got with the corporate? The effect of this is directly linked to the productivity of the individual. So starting from staying focused, staying organized, making sure that there is a method in the way we execute things, approaching everything through a process mindset will determine how well we are able to be productive in the role that we are assigned with. So that's the connection between being conscientiousness, being organized, and being self-disciplined. The next one is agreeableness. Too often today, people are expressing their, it's an individual freedom to express, freedom of thought, expression is guaranteed by the Constitution itself. But how well we are able to, put our point without being, hurting others? Are we able to put through our point across in a manner in which the other person is able to accept our, thought process, opinions, ideas, and suggestions? Okay. So in a corporate environment, this is key for our success, and they look forward to being disagreeable. At the same time, we are not able, disagreeing with others is perfectly fine, but we have to be doing that in an agreeable manner, disagreeing with people, but in a very, very agreeable manner. That's the point with respect to agreeableness. Extraversion, on the other hand, is to the extent to which we are able to be sociable, we are able to get along with diverse set of population. One of the key things about corporate is you will be working shoulder and shoulder with a large section across the universe. You will have people who are coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, different thought process, knowledge, expertise, so on and so. So the ability to work shoulder and shoulder in cross-functional teams is very important from in the corporate perspective, and therefore working in teams while we are in school or college, while on different projects and assignments, gives us that kind of a platform to be carrying the same towards a corporate. So this is again very key, because a corporate is a team of professionals, and that team success depends on individual excellence, but converted in a converted into a team context. So that is why this extraversion plays a significant role. So from a selection perspective, just to conclude on this slide, it is essential that all these big five traits are some of the key things that will be narrowed down on every individual, outside of whatever we said as the knowledge and skills, which is anyway one of the key areas or filters that will be applied before they select the individual. Now, moving on, I talked about the importance of getting people on board. So there are multiple things earlier. There were only one single thing that happening on the joining, on the day of joining, and it's all on the day of joining. The induction happens, and then the person is introduced to the various departments, and then the person is introduced to the department where he or she is going to work along, and made to sit in the role directly. So with the advent of large volumes and high volume hiring, large number of people joining on a specific day, the joining became little more complicated, and therefore we have something called pre-joining, post-joining, and in between sandwich is the joining. So the onboarding, then came the onboarding and assimilation, which is predominantly a pre-joining activity, and then the joining is having the orientation and integration, and post joining contains the induction and placement. So we look at why this is key for us, for every individual. So the onboarding starts today. Recruitments happen at least 6 months to 1 year ahead of actual date on which an individual joins. So the onboarding typically starts even before an employee formally joins. How does it happen? Once they visit a campus and they roll out the offer letter, from the time the offer letter is given to the student, and while he or she is still inside the campus, to the date the person is going to graduate out of the campus and join a corporate, this campus to corporate, that particular transition time is very important for a corporate. Okay, the reason is very simple. Things can change, people can have different choices, people can also look at other opportunities, people can have other priorities, or maybe pursuing higher studies. There can be multitudes of issues that are going to hit the particular student, but from a corporate perspective, it is essential that they are able to have a good connection or a connect with the student while he or she is about to join the corporate. So that onboarding and assimilation is very important for the corporate, to make sure that they are getting the mind share. Very important is the mind share of the student much earlier ahead of time. Today, people are spoiled for choices with respect to anything and everything, not just in corporate life, but even in the personal life. If that is the scenario existing externally, getting a student to join a corporate, sometimes the ratio can be as low as 40% from the time the offer is given till the time the person joins, and it can be as high as 75 to. Typically, corporates expect a joining of at least 75% of the offers which are rolled out. And now you can imagine the efforts taken by the corporate towards making sure a student is joining a particular company starts from the day they actually descend on the campus and finish the recruitment and selection process and roll out the offer. from that day on which the offer letter is given till the time the student joins, it is anybody's guess whether he or she will be joining. But the corporate has this moral obligation, and more importantly, a business reason to make sure that the student is looking forward to joining the company. And thereupon, this onboarding and assimilation assumes a lot of significance. And the first 90 days of the new hire, like I mentioned, 0 to 3 years, or within 6 months of the person joining, it becomes crucial both for the individual as for the company as well. And these 90 days of a new hire in the new organization can be referred to as an assimilation. And the joining process is the next step, where the orientation and induction typically take place. The orientation provides an overview for the new hired employee, and it typically talks about the basic ingredients, namely the history of the company, the mission, vision, the values, the process and procedures, and more importantly, for the how the leadership and other colleagues who are there in the company are able to demonstrate what they are good at in terms of imbibing the value systems in the company. So that onboarding process and typically is make sure that the orientation on the first day, typically it can be very simple way of helping the employee to know where the entire, what is the plan, floor plan, and how the employee needs to look at where he or she needs to look at for typical very simple and minor things like locating the help desk, locating the medical center or the cafeteria, and etc., etc. So it can be very rudimentary things, and it also makes sure that the employee is feeling comfortable on day one with respect to knowing what is what and where he or she needs to look at. On the other hand, the integration is defined as making sure on a typical joining, when it happens, there will be lot many new joinees who are there, and it is to make sure that orientation process for each and every individual is becoming a collective and collaborated effort, so that every single new joinee and all the specific individuals who are coming from different groups and different communities and background are able to take a good takeaway with respect to the company's basic infrastructure on the as a day-to-day activity that they need to be looking at. At the same time, they are able to look at understand the company end to end in terms of how the leadership is, what kind of structure, what is the business they do, and how many years they have been in existence, and who are their customers, and how do they relate to each other, and what is the way in which these the colleagues, and what kind of culture they all exhibit, and that cultural ingredient that they are able to absorb on day one. It is a matter of great importance for the corporate, and that is why most of the leaders descend on the day this orientation and integration happens. That becomes very crucial for freshers who are looking forward to a career in the corporate. So the induction on day one is typically focused on is very focused, whereas onboarding is a much broader term and includes end-to-end acclimatization of the employees and engaging with them with the organization. And finally, placement is introducing the employee to the departments, all the departments, and also the department and the immediate supervisor with whom the employee will be working for. So the importance of this, pre-joining, joining, and post-joining cannot be overemphasized, given the fact that the data that I gave you, if company is experiencing as low as 40% as the conversion from the time the offer is given till the time the student is joining, now you can relate why this particular process has been forward integrated and backward integrated. And those post joining the 90 days or 3 months to 6 months, some of the corporates even extend it up to 6 months to make sure that the employee is feeling at home and is able to get himself or herself adjusted to the environment, and most importantly, able to relate himself or herself to the role very well. So with that, we'll move to the core, intent of this discussion, perspective on recruitment and selection. And this corporate perspective is, depicted in the form of a gramophone on your screen, and this gramophone contains record, and that record has pestle. That pestle is, it is not a acronym for a pest, it is a pestle which stands for political, economic, social, technology, legal and environment. Now why a gramophone? A gramophone, in those days when the technology was not so developed, has got concentric circles, and each of these concentric circles have got multiple lines, and those lines will store the information of the audio that will be jarred. And this gramophone is supposed to be one of the most wonderful instruments that will play the music to the core of its fidelity, the truthfulness with which you can hear the music. Now we'll relate to that once we go to the right side of the screen. So the political instability, the economic conditions, or the state of the economy, the social or the societal factors, technology absorption, the legal or the statutory obligations and environment. All of these have got a major impact on the way business is conducted. Now we'll move to the right side of the screen. How does it impact? All of these, each and every individual factors that you are seeing on the gramophone are actually having an impact on the way technology changes. It will impact the changes in the technology, and it actually has an impact on the way demand cycles are happening inside a corporate. Why? Because in the last 1.5 years, you would have seen that there is a change in the business cycle. There are industries who are not experiencing the same level of demand what they had prior to March of 2020, and it is a result of what we are currently experiencing and in the second wave. But the takeaway from this is that business is not working on a constant line. It doesn't have a straight line and where that this will be the demand and this will be the supply and therefore we can meet our target. It doesn't happen that way. This is a reality today where unpredictable demand cycles are going to be the order of the day. Earlier it was confined to a few industries like software, but today it pervades all the industries. You name the manufacturing, engineering, you name automotive, every industry is having a unpredictable demand cycle. So what does that got to do with what we are discussing? Therefore, there will be a short run business models. That means if you have a business model that has been working for you for ages, then that can be shelved aside. Why? Because if you have an unpredictable demand the way that we are experiencing or industry is experiencing at this point in time, you cannot stock your home with a lot of inventory in anticipation of demand. That will mean that there is a inventory rollover. There will be a cost overrun on the inventory that you are holding. Therefore, you need to be making sound mathematical judgments as to what will be the demand, and that's easier said than done. And therefore, business models will be having very shorter lifetime. That means whatever business model that we are putting together today can be relevant for the 90 days or 180 days or even less than 2 years, and then you need to make sure that you are switching over to a new model. That is the biggest challenge that businesses are going to face going forward. And the next impact, cyclical impact, is the quicker skills obsolescence. And many of you, I'm sure, are by this time familiar that any skill that we are talking about today, whatever skill that we are all professing, or whatever skill that we are thinking that we are on top of it, is going to be irrelevant in a couple of years, not just in a few years. It can be even lesser than that. Many skills that were existing in the 90s and 2000s are no more relevant today. That means those skills have either become defunct or they have taken a new proportion, a new avatar altogether, and therefore people need to be moving towards upskilling them, cross-skilling them, or reskilling them. So therefore, the cost of skills and skills obsolescence is going to hit very, very hard for the company as much as for the individual. There is a importance of the skills in the further discussion that we have, and I will say how it is going to be relevant to each one of us. Moving to the next one, if these are the three given things, unpredictable demand, shorter run business models, and quicker and faster skills obsolescence, what does it do for the companies? The company will lose its appetite for higher volume hiring. Many of you would have heard that typically IT companies have the great appetite for volume hiring. Maybe it has changed in the last 1 year or so, and some of them are actually coming back to their earlier hiring spree. But it is not going to be true for a longer period of time. So in an unpredictable demand cycle, it is going to be the order of the day where companies will be having lower demand for people and lower demand for skills, lower demand for resources, new resources. And that is the way it is going to impact freshers who are aspiring to join many companies. What does it do again to the company? High pressure on margins. So if you do not have business on a regular basis, if for example in a 6 months timeline you hardly have work for only 3 months or 90 days, then it is going to reduce the amount of products and services the company has churned out. What it was doing for 6 months, it is going to do for 3 months, and therefore they're going to be seeing lesser inflow of cash and margins, and therefore it is going to hit the ability for the industry or the company or the enterprise to multiply orders or multiply many more options for either improvement in its process, in its product innovation, or bring in additional orders to service, because it is going to create a lot of pressure on its day-to-day cash management and operations, and therefore it is going to reduce the margins, because it's an all-round impact on having a lesser number of orders. Everybody is facing a similar situation. Therefore, companies will only be as good as its competitor. If that is the case, then many of them may not be doing roaring business and high margins, ability to put away cash in store for 3 years from now, invest in technology, invest in people, invest in bringing new products. All that is going to be highly uncertain way of managing their day-to-day operations. Next one comes the declining profitability. It's a corollary, it's a direct impact on your high margins, high pressure on the margins. If you are able to run your operations, if today that is the outlook that many of the companies are having, then they are looking at just managing and sustainable work that they want to do, just to stay relevant in the business, and so that they are able to process or service orders that they currently have on hand, and they do not want to compromise on the same. And this has an impact on the profit margins and profitability of the enterprise. Typically, if a company or a business is not making profit, then everything will come to a situation where they are either looking at survival or they are looking at servicing the existing orders, and they are not aspiring to bring in more business just because they are unable to service the demand. So just to give one example, if there is a mass exodus of contract labor going away due to the external environment situation, then you can imagine many of these medium-term, small-scale industries, how they will be impacted with respect to availability of manpower, even to carry out regular normal, sustainable orders. If there is a regulation coming in, your business can run only between 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. or 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., then there is a shrinkage on the effort that I can put, on the number of people that I can hire, on the number of orders that I can service. So this is a simple, way of looking at how the business gets impacted due to a political environment, the state of current economy, the society factors, namely, is there a availability of manpower? They do not have it. And no matter how well your technology is running, unless otherwise, it is a completely process run enterprise with zero intervention for people. Even in those cases, it should be falling under the essential supplies category. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult even for those industries to sustain business. So therefore, this declining profitability is another impact of your Pestle collection of all these, what you're seeing on the uh, gramophone. And then the last one is a widening gap between demand and supply. So what does it do if companies have switched over to automation, if companies have switched over to completely robot driven assembly line with very little or very least number of people required to run the shop? What does that do for people? So people become irrelevant. Those skills, whatever we are having, becomes not a saleable commodity, and market doesn't recognize them, and companies have switched over, which has actually happened in most of these automobile and process run enterprise industries. And therefore the companies may be looking at very different skills. So the data scientists today, what we are talking about, the data scientists, the artificial intelligence experts, the data mining experts, so the next gen technologies, the advent of Internet of Things, IoT, things that were erstwhile done in an internet era have become switched over to something called IoT, where you don't have to have anything in a handheld device. Everything can be done in a virtual environment. So therefore, those things call for completely a different set of skills altogether. Is the industry able to churn out that? Is the academic world able to churn out that kind of skills which the industry is looking forward? And that creates a gap. That is what we call as a widening gap between demand and supply. Now, focusing on the core of this concentric circle, this is a vicious circle. This vicious circle will have impact on the center part of it. What you're seeing, multiple musical notes. The analogy here is that what the gramophone churns out, if the needle in the gramophone is working in a concentric circle manner, then if everything is working in coordination, then it is fine. However, if the needle is switching tracks, then you will hear a jumbled music. That jumbled music is a consequence of this unstable political environment. The state of the current economy is a reflection of whatever is happening in the external environment. The social or the society factors will have impact due to this change of tracks in the gramophone. The technology absorption by industries can be very different from what we have seen. Today, nobody uses a gramophone. So therefore, the technology has changed from becoming very hardware focused or physical focused to everything become virtually focused. Okay, and everything can be delivered virtually. And then the legal and statutory environment will change. Today, no more people are looking at going to a place to work. Work is no more where you are going to. Work is where you are staying from, where you can deliver everything virtually. So the environment has taken a completely different version by virtue of the last 12 to 14 months, which none of us were frankly even anticipating, let alone able to adapt to it. So this right side circle is a vicious circle of influence one factor has on the other. So the jumbled music tells us that this environment is going to be very chaotic, very ambiguous, and very difficult to make a reasonable or a meaningful prediction. unless otherwise we are able to see a very, very steady state of all these 5 factors over a sustainable long period of time. It has never been. Maybe the industrial era had seen where the industries were running more of process oriented and they were able to sustain the same. So the most promising oil industry in the Gulf is facing a huge challenge, was facing a huge challenge because of the lack of demand last year. So many of you know that. So just to conclude on this slide, these 5 factors have got a high impact on the way companies can absorb both freshers as well as laterals, precisely due to the factors that we have seen. One is the demand cycle, second is the loss of skills, and therefore, the skill gap that arises between the academic and the corporate. So we'll move on to the next slide. And what does it do for the recruitment? So what you're seeing here is the effect of the demand, unpredictable demand that these companies face. So there'll be lower demand for resources. We talked about that. Many of the skills that we are thinking that it is very relevant to the corporate will become redundant. Job cuts have become the norm of the day. Many of you are reading that in the newspaper, where slash of jobs by almost all the companies across industries it is happening. There are many people who will be losing their job, loss of employment, offshoring to cheaper destinations. If I can do a product or a service, do or deliver a product or service for while I was doing it for 100, if I can do it for 40 rupees today, originally it was 100. If I can go to another destination where I can deliver the same for 40, companies will be naturally inclined to do the same. So therefore, offshoring becomes there. Going to destinations where availability of labor is much more cheaper and makes sense for companies to operate. The second one is, instead of looking at skills wherever it is available in the world, can I look at skills which are available near home? If it is available, many of these IT companies are developing nearshore development centers, making sure they are able to tap local talent, and thereby we are able to generate much more job opportunities for these kind of companies. So that nearshoring of jobs is more of the IT companies, especially United States, which were showing high levels of protectionism for its citizens, were all pushing companies to make sure there are more number of US citizens who are able to grab the jobs. Therefore, many of these companies were looking at setting up shops within the same territory where they were earlier offshore, were getting their business, and they are mandating that you need to provide employment for people from this geography rather than looking at from other geographies. Other consequence, quality will suffer, because if we are unable to get people who are qualified enough, who have the right mindset, if you're unable to spend time on recruiting the right set of people, and we are cutting corners and taking compromises, then quality will suffer. Cyber attacks is, last 12 to 14 months, we have seen enough and more of this cyber attacks happening, and this is again the consequence of all the other systems who have awakened and want a pound of the flesh, that many of these companies are hard pressed because of lack of resources, and that is one of the reasons why this increasing number of cyber attacks and data piracy is happening. Reduced opportunities for existing employees. Naturally, unless we add more people, if companies are unable to absorb more people, the existing employees' growth opportunities or moving up in their career is going to be reduced, and companies will not be looking at promoting more number of people or giving them alternate assignments, simply because they are unable to add more people who can actually take up the jobs of the existing people who are talented enough to move to next level of roles. Restructure and offload of non-core business. Many companies resort to this simply because if it is not making sense for them to run the business in the current way, the business models that we talked about has got relevance to this. Many of these businesses which do not make sense for them, they will continue to offload to other companies who have got the relevant expertise, who have got the relevant wherewithal to do and deliver, or maybe they are a center of excellence to deliver the same, and therefore they can be a better bet for these corporates to run the same, and it makes a lot of sense, business sense for them in terms of both margins, profitability, and cost of running the business. On the right hand side, the selection criteria. So the selection criteria, if there is a reduced opportunity for corporates to take more people, then it means that there is going to be increased pressure on, or they will revisit the criteria which is applied for selecting the candidates. So therefore, there will be an increase in the filtering criteria which they apply to select students from many of these campuses. Erstwhile, the corporates were giving a basic cutoff the way academic world was looking at 60% and above. So if corporates having a pressure on number of hires they can recruit from a campus, they may increase the cutoff to 80 plus or 90 plus depending on the number of opportunities they have. So that is where the qualifying bar or criteria will get revisited by many companies, and therefore the reduced intake from campuses and open markets, it's a consequence of the selection criteria. There will also be an overall drop in these wages and salary levels of people, because the equilibrium in the market is changed. There is more supply than what the corporates will be requiring. There is more supply and less demand, and therefore they can always, the corporates have a better bargaining power for getting people with lesser cost. And consequently, there will be a inflow of investments for training. That means if 5 years from now, if I would like to enhance my current systems, process, and also equip my people with the relevant training, that becomes that will be given a second priority or even shelved for the moment, because if the industry is unable to sustain its current operations in the current format, then it doesn't make sense for him to invest in training and equipping people with next gen skills. Okay, so that is the key point with respect to the reduction in investments in training. The next one is existing employees will get frustrated because of the stagnation at all levels. It's again natural, because people can be looking forward to move up, looking forward to career enhancement, career additional responsibilities, promotion, etc. It may not happen simply because there is a all-round slump, both from a absorption of people, demand, business. All of these are a contributing factor, and therefore there will be stagnation. People may not be able to move despite having served for a significant number of time. It leads to a lot of low morale and motivation, and there will also be people who are quitting, or maybe marginally better. There will be high attrition, voluntary and involuntary, simply because either the company is unable to provide them with enough opportunities, or they are able to see as a better return on investment of their skills and knowledge in other companies. So either of these is a consequence of the fluctuation in the demand. And the last one is pretty significant today. Working from home can be would have been a boon for many of these people in the past, but go and ask them today, many of them may not be saying it positively, simply because the number of hours which you need to devote in this virtual environment has increased at least 3 to 5 times more than what you are doing while you are visiting your office, or going to a college campus, or visiting your anything that you are doing while you are actually mobile. Today you are more or less stuck in one place, and you have to deliver everything in an online environment. So the number of hours that every individual is supposed to devote while working from home has actually having created a lot of psychological issues that have been never before thought of while we were allowing people to work from home. So these are, one part is devoted towards the recruitment, the other side talks about the changes in the selection topography. With this, we will move to the solutioning. So what's the way forward? Now we talked about Is it also negative? Is it all only about loss of demand, loss of opportunities? Is it about lot of there is no line of sight or visibility for people to move ahead? Human nature is that we'll tend to look at only things which are not good news for us. But there is a way forward, and how do we? These are all very temporary. It's all a passing phase, and we need to move forward, right? So how do we move forward? So we will look at a few things. The skill is on top of this pyramid. So I'm going to give an explanation of how we can look forward to staying positive, and how, as each one of us, it doesn't matter whether you're a student or a academician or a research scholar or any walk of life. So skill is relevant to us, and it stays at the top of the pyramid. And continuing to equip ourselves in new skills is the need, is the order of the day, and there are no two ways about it. So I am attaching a score for it, 63. We look at how to arrive at this score of 63. Next comes knowledge. And knowledge is the body on which the skill needs to be applied. So once you gain knowledge in a school or a college or a university or wherever you are from, the skill has to be sharpened through the knowledge that we are acquiring. But what is the score for knowledge? 96. Where do we get this? We look at how to get this. But fundamentally, is the skill alone necessary? Is necessary, but it is not sufficient. Why? Simply because it adds up to only 63. Now, definition, how do we get this? You take the alphabets A to Z, assign 1 to 26 as the numbers on these A to Z. The skill will give you a score of 63, and knowledge will give a score of 96. But again, will knowledge be sufficient for us to survive at all times? It gives only a score of 96. It's still not sufficient. So what does it take for us to become all-round proficient? Attitude. But does attitude alone an evergreen solution for what we are doing today? Is it still necessary, but is it sufficient? Now, they say that a person with a wrong attitude in a right place may not survive, but a person with a right attitude, even in a wrong environment, can survive. Mark the word survive. We can only survive even if you have the right attitude. Despite having the knowledge, which is having a score of 96 and a skill of 63, you can only make your survival there, which is not sure, it is not certain. Now, attitude has got a score of 100. If you add up all the alphabets A to E in attitude, that gets a score of 100. But is that sufficient at all times? I would say it's not sufficient. How to make the skill relevant at all times and increase the score from 63 to 100? That's the challenge. Same applies for knowledge. Now, there is a way which we can do that. Discipline, which has got an overall score of 100. Why discipline? If a skill that is learned today, if it is not continuously upgraded, it is irrelevant to you even tomorrow. Therefore, a disciplined way of nurturing your skill, it doesn't happen through an external intervention. The skill intervention should be happening through the individual. That sharpening of the skill is something rests with the individual. So a disciplined way of acquiring new skills, there is no end date for acquiring new skills, and therefore it is a continuous process. Now that will bridge the gap of 37 on the skill, and by following a very disciplined approach on acquiring new skills, you can partially abridge the skill, take it to 100. The same applies for knowledge. Although knowledge can be coming in handy because it is the bedrock and foundation for skill, but it still becomes challenging for us if we are trying to rest it on our shoulders. Instead, if you are able to continue to make it relevant, acquire acquire and exhibit more of it by expanding our horizon by teaching, by learning. And knowledge is such that the is one component which will get more and more fruitful and fertile only if it is expended. That means the more and more we are able to share, the better becomes what we are today. So therefore, that score of 4 can be added by if we are able to have a disciplined way of utilizing, not just acquiring, utilizing and disseminating the knowledge that we are acquiring in a period of time. So put together, the KSAs for an individual, the knowledge, skill, and attitude becomes key for everybody's success at all times. So, simply having the right attitude alone may not guarantee success at all times, but attitude coupled with a disciplined way of acquiring knowledge continuously, thereby ensuring that the knowledge is applied skillfully and making us relevant at all times, making that skill relevant to us, relevant to the environment, will probably make us successful on a sustainable manner. However, there is no written rule that everybody can be successful at all times. It is impossible. Closer to being irrelevant or closer to being relevant. That is the spectrum in which we need to move away from. Move away from being irrelevant to staying closer to relevance. That can be done if we are able to structure this pyramid, have attitude as a foundation, making sure the knowledge is a continuous process of acquisition, and skill is something which we are able to continuously apply, but have this done in a very, very disciplined manner. So with that, I have a short video. Priya, do we have time for a video?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so here is a short video on the subject of recruitment and selection. Priya, is the audio clear?
Sir, no, sir. We can't hear anything.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Sir, kindly unmute yourself, sir. Audio is not clear.
Is it clear now?
No, sir. We can't hear it.
You can't hear? Oh, sorry.
Sir, unmute yourself, sir. Sir, unmute yourself, sir.
So please unmute yourself. No, sir, you're not audible.
Sir, kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think this video is available on the web, so people can look at it. With that, we come to the end of the presentation. We take some
So,
questions.
yes, sir. So the first question is, you mentioned about the importance of attitude in corporate culture. What kind of attitude is required? Could you elucidate that with some examples?
Okay, so the most important and probably the things that we look forward in corporate is the interest and um, liking towards learning, because in corporates, in a particular role, a role can be relevance can be become very very short period of time. So one of the key things that corporates look forward to while freshers come into the system is the importance of learning, and that learning happens typically in three ways. um, you know 70% of the learning will happen on the job, and 20% will happen through the supervisor, and only 10% will happen through the um, you know classroom training. So the transition from corporate to from campus to corporate calls for the importance of the person to be able to continuously learn, and that learning is a continuous process by which a person can actually move from multiple roles. So unless you are open to learning, you will not be able to move across both vertically, horizontally, or laterally. So vertical growth, many of them think that a time bound promotion is a vertical growth. Actually, it is a misnomer, because vertical growth is emphasizing the fact that having done this role for X number of years, I have the relevant skills, knowledge to move to the next level. And the next level of skills calls for a thoroughly new set of skills that which I need to acquire. That acquisition should have happened as part of your execution in the current role and responsibility. So coming back to attitude, attitude is ability to take challenges, ability to acquire new skills, have the thirst for continuous learning.
Um, so the next question is, could you please suggest some IT-based courses that students can pursue alongside with their degree, since technology is the future of finance?
It is a $1 million guess, because like I mentioned, the technology obsolescence is very fast. All of us who are in the same state of mind, and the only way to know about what is relevant is, in each of our roles that we are performing, we need to constantly rethink whether what we are doing today will be able to be relevant in the future. And software is one industry where we will not be able to pinpoint and say, having done this course, we will be able to move to we will be able to fetch a job, or we will be able to move from one level to another level. It is a trial and error method, and more often, once you have spent sufficient time inside an organization, it's a two-way process. An individual equipping himself with the relevant skills, survival skills to stay relevant. The corporate will also be able to complement it with supporting for acquiring new skills from a technology perspective. So many of us never even imagined that we will never go to a counter to book a ticket in a railway for a railway ticket. Today, everything is done on the mobile. So from a mere transaction where the user was at the receiving end, today user is the dominant force. Likewise, all and anything that is making sense in the new world, it is only that we will have to make efforts to know it, to talk to the relevant people, and then acquire those technologies to stay relevant. But it is inside a corporate, that is where I would suggest that we need to be watchful of the trends happening in the technology. I gave a few examples, like data scientists are on great demand today. Artificial intelligence is a new way of looking at technology. The third one is the next gen technologies and IoT applications in the IoT context. So anybody who is equipping themselves with skills in these emerging areas can be closer to kind of opportunities that can emerge in the future.
So, the next question is, kindly explain about the possibilities of job position for commerce background students in the IT sector.
So, you know, the finance and accounts play a very, very pivotal role in the IT companies, and they are the backbone of the corporate in terms of running the day-to-day operations, as well as um, making it explicit regarding the financial position and health of the company. So it is there are a limited number of opportunities for people who are taking up in this. If your fundamentals are strong, if the fundamentals of what you are studying, not just in commerce background, but irrespective of any discipline where we are bringing in software engineers, even for people with this background, you can look for receivables, accounts receivable, accounts payable. There are multiple roles which are there. Only thing is, it is limited, it is advertised, it is rarely advertised, and if you are lucky enough to get into one of those, either by virtue of a campus visit or by virtue of a lateral entry, then the role development happens within the company. The opportunities are more or less what you are seeing in the external market, from basic finance and accounts roles which you are seeing in many industries. You will have a similar set of roles, but the opportunities are very limited, because rarely people who come into these companies will exit at their own will, because it's really a well-paid job. And everybody, even in this commerce, with coming from a commerce or any other non-engineering background, need to fight hard for survival. That is the unwritten rule. I am not insulated from the vagaries of what impacts the industry. So I can be given a pink slip on any day. So therefore, even in an HR context, we have to make ourselves relevant. So the job opportunities are available, but it is much more available for entry level positions than in the other levels.
Artificial intelligence, how does it differ from robots?
Yeah. So robots are pre-programmed to deliver what they are supposed to do. When the robots were introduced, robots were pre-programmed to deliver. It will be more or less a structured or a free flow or a flow of operations which were pre-programmed. Whereas an AI will read everything in context. AI will scan. So, for example, if you're walking into an airport, the passport scanner system is supposed to scan your face and then relate it to the database which is stored inside. And that AI will actually read every single micron which is there in the image in the table which has been saved against the person who is there physically, and then map it one-on-one and then give it. Likewise, the face reading, the ability to predict what will be the requirement of this individual, what will be the anticipated moves of this individual. AI can do that for you. A robo is a standalone instrument. It will perform routine operations. To simply give you simple explanation would be, a robo is a standalone entity which will perform routine operations, whereas an AI will anticipate, it will give you solutions futuristic in nature.
So nowadays, due to this pandemic, induction and training are going on through the online mode for freshers. Does this really work out for IT
Is there
sector
a
as well?
choice? Is there a choice? There's no choice, right? So many companies have adapted, many students have adapted to this over the last 12 to 14 months. There is hardly any noise about this, because all of you are learning this through a web. And so have you lost anything? The medium has changed, the way the delivery is changed, and you continue to learn. So this is what I said. The technology disruption will make us learn new things, right? Many of us were not adaptive to a online or a virtual environment. It may have existed in the Western countries, but frankly, we would not have given a thought. But the reality is, all of us are adapting to it, and therefore, whether you are in manufacturing or automotive or engineering or IT, people who are not wanting to get into or adapt themselves to an virtual environment were forced to do. And that is what I say, that you become irrelevant and obsolete, or you will be left behind in the race if you do not do it by yourself. So therefore, it was already existing in the IT environment, where the leaders will be sitting in different office and delivering the induction process for the new freshers in different cities. But today, from the joining till the regulated working environment, everybody is doing online, and that adaptation is no more an exception, it is a rule, and it works well. To answer that second part of the question, it really works well.
So next question. What are the types of training offered after selection of candidates in IT sector currently?
Yeah. So apart from technology training, for whatever they have been principally hired for, namely, the technologies such as .NET or um, Java or any other, principally for which they have hired, there will be a basic grooming on the technologies for which they have hired for. And apart from that, the company will orient them towards um, the business in which the customers, the kind of industries to which they cater to. So there will be a functional level training given to them. There will be a domain specific. When I say domain, the domain can be insurance or healthcare or retail, manufacturing, logistics, whatever. Typically, these industries are the one where they cater to. So to all of these, domain specific training will be given, and the foundation will be predominantly devoted towards the technologies for which they have been hired to. And finally, the soft skills part, companies will not invest on equipping you with communication skills. That has to be coming from the college directly. There is no time devoted for that. They will be more devoted towards the culture, the IT security related policies and practices, the internal company policies and practices, and more importantly, the three things they do is misconduct and disciplinary procedures, processes relating to that, then orienting them on HR policies, and then finally on the IT security. So this IT security takes a lot of prominence because of the in wake of the recent attacks which are happening, and people may not be aware the kind of risk that they are handling by virtue of customer data and information. And there is no tolerance for ignorance. You can't profess ignorance and say I do not know this. So that is why the training of 4 to 6 weeks is a very, very structured training encompassing all of these.
Next question, sir.
Yeah,
AI has
absolutely.
replaced many human resource assets of the company. Could it have an impact on the IT sector in the future?
Yeah, it is. Why future? It is having an impact today. Why are we talking about future? It has already impacted in the past. It is currently doing the same now. It is going to have a huge impact in the future. So there is no it IT. It is not it is not functioning in a island. Every industry is impacted. IT will be highly impacted because of the unpredictability of technology. That's the reality, and nobody is sitting in a ivory tower and safe. Yeah.
So the next question is online mode of recruitment is best or direct recruitment? Because nowadays companies are recruiting employees from online mode.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, no, earlier the face-to-face interview was mandated after the initial rounds. Today we are unable to do that. All the rounds are done right from the initiation till the time the offer rollout. Everything is done online. Today we cannot insist on anybody to come to a place to see them in person. That will be the last thing anybody want to do. So we need to adapt. We need to make sure every decision that we are taking today is having a is done in a virtual mode.
Now I request Dr. Alamelu Satyabama, Assistant Professor, Evening, to propose the vote of thanks.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Corporate Secretaryship Department, Day and Evening College, I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose vote of thanks uh, on this Ability Enhancement Series, lecture number 7. First and foremost, I thank our special guest, Mr. Prabhuchari sir, for accepting our invitation in despite of his busy schedule and enlightened us with his knowledge. And the lecture gave us the deep insight into the topic, and we gain many interesting factors. And sir, we agree that individual knowledge, skill, attitude contribute to a great extent in sustaining the corporate culture and the competitiveness. And my heartfelt thanks to Head of the Department, Day College, Dr. Prabha Rajagopalan ma'am, and Evening College, Dr. Kalpana Devi ma'am, for organizing such a wonderful and inspiring lecture series number 7. And I record my sincere thanks to our beloved principal, Dr. Captain Santosh Babu sir and Secretary sir for their kindness and constant support. I especially thank our final year student, Mr. Lokesh, for designing the e-certificate for this series. And I thank all the faculty members and the faculty coordinator, Dr. Prem Kumar sir, for their cooperation, and the students in making the series a resounding success. Thank you once again. Feedback link is posted in the chat box. Kindly fill it up to receive e-certificate. Thank you.